the name Forum started to make waves in the market on a larger scale, we figured out a way to enhance returns by doing good as well. We want to grow substantially. You're never going to learn unless you're just thrown into it. The people who do the best are the hardest workers. Good investors lean into risk. My goal continues to be build something of meaningful scale. It comes down to one thing, just work hard.
Aly, thank you for being with me today here.
It's my pleasure, Leanne.
So Aly Damji, you are the managing partner of real estate at Forum Asset Management. We're here in your office today. Forum is an alternative asset manager, investor, developer. You guys are primarily a long-term holder. You have two primary funds, and now you are pretty focused on development. So about 1.5 billion in your pipeline in development at the moment. Um,
Actually, more.
oh,
3.5 billion.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh. Oh,
yeah.
my
That
research
grew
is not
that
that's
grew
amazing.
fairly quickly, yes.
Okay, so why don't we start there? Because yeah, like that would be, I guess, within the last year, you've really doubled in size then on the development.
Yeah, for sure. And that number is, a bit of a marketing number because it's based on completed value. But yes, we are developers and we develop in both of our current real estate strategies right now, self-storage, but the biggest one is rental housing and with a real focus on student housing. And so over the past year, we've been very active when opportunities have presented themselves because of the dislocation in land prices. We're able to make it work and thus we've been able to acquire or grab control of key pieces of land in both the Greater Toronto Area and the Lower Mainland in Vancouver.
Amazing. I'm curious. So, all of the new pieces of land that you guys are acquiring, do you have a team in house that's kind of going after it, or just kind of what I guess has been happening with the development industry? Are people coming to you? Do you have banks kind of coming to you, or how is that acquisition strategy all playing out right now?
It's a bit of everything, I would say. A few of the projects we acquired ourselves. So, firstly, we've been blessed with building an amazing team. My journey at Forum is now over 5 years. And when I joined, the company had 8 people, but the real estate team at the time was just me. And so, over the past 5 years, I've had the ability to handpick a team of really driven and ambitious individuals who like to think out of the box. And so a number of the properties and parcels of land we've acquired have been on an off-market basis. I have a history, even in my past lives, acquiring assets off-market. We have successfully won bids for on-market land. And then I would say absolutely the dynamic over the past 12 to 24 months when I guess developers themselves acquired parcels of land but can't make the numbers pencil because they purchased at peak pricing and the exit to a condo or multifamily development isn't working, we have been approached in a number of instances. And in one specific instance, we have forged a relationship with an owner in Vancouver and are now working on our second transaction with them.
Oh, that's amazing. So, why don't we kind of take a step back? Because I want to talk about your career path. You have a very extensive career in real estate. Prior to Forum, you were the EVP of investments and asset management at Hallmark. I think where we're similar a bit is wanted to be in real estate from a young age, not as young as you, from my understanding. But that is not the norm. I get that a lot from people. They're like, "Oh, how did you know you want to get into real estate?" So you have said you were pretty young. Where do you think that came from? And has your career kind of gone the way that you've thought it was going to? Or
Yeah, generally, I would say so. So what I would say is that I think real estate is in embedded deep in my bones. So I was born and raised in Toronto, but three generations of my family were born in Tanzania and East Africa. We're of Indian descent, but for three generations, my family born and raised and amassed wealth in East Africa. And my father's side of the family were actually the largest landowners in Tanzania. But there was a big nationalization push that occurred in the 60s and 70s, and they had to flee and lost everything. But since a young age, I was told about my family's history, and I guess it In a way, my family, my dad and my mom subtly brainwashed me such that and you've probably heard the story that, as a young child, when my friends wanted to be hockey players or police officers or firefighters, I wanted to be a real estate developer. Yeah.
That's cool. I mean, clearly it's worked out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it
had
has
a
worked
dream,
out.
making it work. Um, so kind of going back to Forum. So Forum's been around for I think 28 years. Yeah, 29 years. You've been here about 5 years, I guess, like right when COVID was hitting. And I actually didn't realize that you were the only person here on the real estate team when you started. So you're primarily focused at the moment on the residential side of things. Was that always the case, or how did that all come to fruition here?
No. So, good topic to touch on. And I shared the story earlier today, but maybe I'll take a bit of a step back because the journey of Forum really involves my partner, Richard Aboud, who's the CEO and founder. And why it's so important, and I want to mention him, is back in 2019, when I was considering leaving Hallmark, I had an opportunity to go out on my own. I had someone approach me and was going to back me, but I was really drawn to the idea of partnering someone who built something from nothing. And the punchline is Forum has had now 5 versions. We call it Forum 5.0, and I was, one of the first to join 5.0. But Forum 1.0 was a office leasing brokerage firm. Richard was an office leasing broker.
Okay.
And then Forum
Big change
2.0,
then.
yeah, got into becoming a merchant bank, effectively, how Richard says it, rubbing 2 nickels together to create a penny. And, in that part of Forum's history, really focused on maximizing returns with as little capital as possible invested. And then when we get to Forum 3.0, that's when the name Forum started to make waves in the market on a larger scale. That's when Forum was heavily involved in the P3 infrastructure space to the point where Forum, because of the way Richard had built the team, won 8 out of 10 public-private partnership RFPs. And that takes a lot of expertise to be able to do that. And you have to have, deliver a high degree of comfort to governmental institutions who need to believe that you're going to deliver. So that was 3.0.
And was it like back then, as it has been transitioning, was it still like primarily a pretty small team back
Yeah,
then
small
too?
team.
It's crazy.
I don't know the exact number of what Forum would have peaked at, but I believe at a point of around in the 20s, Forum
Oh, okay.
4.0.
So primarily quite small
Yeah,
considering
primarily
for doing
quite
yeah.
small, and then, Richard made the decision at the time to go spend time with his young daughters and effectively sold off, the infrastructure assets to Fiera Infrastructure and turned into a by appointment only family office and started investing, in other managers himself. And then he came back after a couple of years when his daughters were older and didn't want to spend time with him and wanted to build a manager. And what he found when in Forum 4.0, the time when not much was going on, was that he really liked new managers, but he didn't like new managers who didn't have capital because they weren't aligned. And so what he came back with was the idea of creating an alternative asset manager, but given our balance sheet, could invest substantial capital into each of our strategies. And so Forum 5.0 was created. And at that time in 2019, when we first started talking, believe it or not, our idea together was to go build an office platform because at Hallmark, I had great success
Yeah, of course.
building in the shadows of Allied and, saw an opportunity to do that across the country. And I remember March 13th is the day that I resigned at Hallmark, which was the day Doug Ford announced the
Yeah, that's
lockdown, and the
wild
day I
timing.
texted Richard, and I was like, "Are we still good? Because who
Yeah.
knows what's gonna happen with Office?" And sure enough, and this speaks to our ability to be nimble and be highly entrepreneurial, we pivoted, and we saw trends in, rental housing, particularly in student housing, that we wanted to lean into. And here we are 5 years later, number 9 on the team. We're gonna be approaching 63 in Toronto by the end of the year, and when you add, the platform where we have a 50% ownership and in self-storage, in total, we have over 120 people, at Forum, so it's quite the journey. which is kinda cool as, like, maybe you wanna use this, maybe you don't. So, picture this, May 2020, I start at Forum, and, I had my 2nd child, my wife and I, on April 1, 2020, so we had a baby at home. We had my daughter, who was 4 years old, yelling into a screen, and I'm like, "I gotta get out of here." So, literally, since May 2020, I have been in the office,
Oh, no
and it
way.
has been transformational to build a team and build a culture being in the office, and something that I know a lot of peers who had a harder time getting into the office really struggle with.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Um, I was gonna kinda touch on this afterwards, but you've, like, kind of brought it up already, so we'll kind of move around a little bit. But building your team, building your culture, you're obviously very entrepreneurial. I think Forum has, like, proven that they think outside the box just with even the assets that you guys are pretty focused on right now. So building your team, like, what have you looked for to build that team? And I'm curious because, like, I know some people that are quite entrepreneurial. Do you think that's a skill that actually can be taught, or do you have to find people with that fire in them? What's been your strategy on the team?
Yeah, it's a really interesting, question. So what I would say is early days when we were building our team, it was really difficult because picture, you know, 2020, 2021, even all the real estate firms were still, 1 day in the office max, primarily still, work from home. We were insisting this was a work from office culture. So you can picture Forum as an unknown brand. People knew me, they knew Richard,
Yeah.
but, Forum wasn't the name that it is today.
So she was like still pretty scary of like what COVID was. No one knew at the
Yeah,
time too. Yeah.
totally. And so it was a challenge. What I would say, what we were able to do was sell the story of what Forum has been. And if you looked at my track record, while I was at Hallmark, what we were able to grow. And so it did take a degree of entrepreneurialism from people
Yeah.
to want to take that leap and join us. So I would say a high degree of entrepreneurialism was inherent with the program. And then people ask me all the time, Leanne, how did you get to where you are today? And I always say it comes down to one thing, just work hard. If you're the first person in the office and the last person out, you're always driving for more, you're never sitting still. Those are a lot of the characteristics that I've seen that translate to success. And really, those are the skills we look for in people on our team. And what I could say, the large majority of our team really care. They want to build something that is unique and special. And that's an opportunity we can afford here that not many established companies can because, 5.0 when he started 5 years ago. And really, it's only been over the past 3 years we've, moved really far along our journey. We set a big, hairy, audacious goal 3 years ago, and it's to reach a certain AUM, which I'm not going to talk about, but it's gulp worthy and everyone on the team buys in to try and achieve that.
Yeah. Well, I think, like, when you're kinda doing something different than other people, you have to have the followership with your team because it's a lot of hard work, and the last 5 years, it's been challenge after challenge after challenge, so, yeah, no, that's great to hear. So, building something special here, let's kinda chat about that. You guys are pretty vocal that, you're making an impact, you have your impact fund, and extraordinary outcomes is part of your mission here. What does extraordinary outcomes mean in practical terms? And I guess how do you ensure that your projects aren't just financial returns for your investors? Like, what does that all mean?
Yeah, I'd love to unpack that. So first, I want to clarify that, notwithstanding our flagship fund is called the Forum Real Estate Income and Impact Fund, it is not an impact fund because what impact funds do are they sacrifice returns for doing good. We've figured out a way to enhance returns by doing good as well, and I think that's an important distinction. But going back to our goal of delivering extraordinary outcomes, so what that means is we've defined as part of our culture and values, uh, a large group of stakeholders. They include the owners of the company, which is all held closely by Richard, myself, our partner Tate, and a few other key members of the team. So those are the owners. Our employees are our stakeholders. The community is our stakeholder. Our investors are our stakeholders. So at all times, what we're trying to do, and it's not always easy, is trying to create positive outcomes for all the stakeholders involved. And as you can appreciate, that is a challenge. It's a challenge to undertake, but once you codify it in your culture,
Yeah.
it's interesting to see the way people on our team think about things. And so what I would say is the translation that we try and create is, well, here's a good example. If I want to deliver an extraordinary outcome, but I want to benefit the community, I can build, some sort of civic good. But if that civic good is built in a way that makes my overall development a more appealing development, well, I've now enhanced the asset value by creating some sort of community good that is going to translate in higher returns for the owners as well as the investors and create greater opportunities for our employees. And that's how we really look at everything. And one stat I am so proud of our team is last year, with our relatively small team at the time, we finished first overall for our peer group for GRESB's annual benchmark survey in non-listed residential. And the reason we came out on top, beating some major players out there with ESG teams that are in the dozens. We have no ESG team here. We just have a team of people who think about delivering, environmental, social, and governance outcomes. Is the fact that we look at investing in ESG initiatives that actually deliver an ROI. And what we found is, we're earning about a 20 to 30% ROI on all of our ESG initiatives.
That's awesome. That's great. It's a great stat. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think one of the goals that I read that you guys have set is to improve 50,000 lives by 2030. So, how do you measure the social impact of your developments, and what does that goal like mean for the public and the greater good?
Yeah, for sure. So that is one of our big, hairy, audacious goals, which is positively impacting 50,000 lives. And, right now, I believe the count we're at about 12,000. I might be a little short, but somewhere around there. Listen, we don't measure impacting lives by developing housing. That would be too easy and certainly not the way we're looking at impacting lives positively. How we're looking at impacting lives positively is translating profits we generate or projects we invest in. We divert some of that investment and profit to social good. So, as an example, if we're building a project that is catering to a university, a student housing project, we will bake into our pro forma some level of alignment and monetary contribution to the university because it is in our best interest that that university thrives and does well.
Yeah.
And in today's environment, universities are really feeling a pinch. And so there's an example where at York University, our flagship student housing projects are the quads. We're just broke ground on our third phase.
Yeah, congrats.
We
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Not many people can say that in today's
Yeah,
environment.
no, for sure.
We donated to a bursary for Osgood law students. I mean, that has a measurable impact annually. Separately, Forum is the founder of a new charity called Shift Canada. And the whole idea behind Shift is to really increase Canada's competitiveness through what is a mentality to drive entrepreneurialism. There's too much of a fear of failing in Canada, and there's a mindset shift where we're contributing dollars to create school programs for kids. That's a tangible live that you can impact. And so that's what we do. We publish an impact report annually and we measure it by contacting all of our charities and foundations that we donate to or work with and ask them for tangible numbers of the dollars we've given them. How has that translated to lives impacted? So we do measure it.
Cool. I guess this kind of goes back to like one of my earlier questions. So when you came over here, it was a pretty small team. It was just you. So is this a lot of like your own personal initiatives that you wanted to kind of bring to life? Or how did this whole platform kind of, because it's really been only the last 5 years. So did you have the idea? You came to Richard, or how did this all kind of evolve to here?
It just two really passionate people who wanted to build something, who are hardworking, creative, came together and created something. He had a plan. He wanted to create an alternative asset manager. I had a dream of creating a national real estate business development and ownership, and the ability for us to come together and build that has been amazing. And every day is a journey in learning more, not only from him, the members of our team, our other partner, Tate. There's so much learning that goes on. And so it would be very wrong of me to say that, yes, it was all me. What I would say is that I am very much focused on growth and building. And
Mhm.
what does that mean? It means I'm constantly focused, like every entrepreneur is, to build on my goals, and my goal continues to be build something of meaningful scale. And now, as you know, we have taken another leap by acquiring the Align student housing REIT. Our goals are much larger. We want to create a national development business. We want to be one of the preeminent REITs out there in Canada, and that serves the overall purpose that us at the leadership team level are thinking about, which is to create the preeminent mid-market alternative asset manager in Canada.
Yeah, cool. Um, I don't wanna get, like, too much into this, but I guess forward thinking and, like, thinking long term, there's obviously been a decent amount of changes, demographic shifts. You've talked about before how there's a decline in fertility rates. Obviously, immigration policy has changed. I think it seems like there's still a huge undersupply of student housing. Is there any risk do you guys find, like, down the road? Or if it gets to a point where things start even out, like, I don't really know how, student housing works. Is there any regulation in place? Like, could you ever switch gears on some of your projects that it would be for young professionals? Or I just don't know how all those dynamics work, and do you even see that being a risk?
For sure. So one thing I've learned over the past few years is that good investors lean into risk. And so we are constantly looking at risk first.
Yeah,
And so I would say that starts with our development projects. Our development projects, majority of them that are off campus student housing, because we do have on campus student housing, they could be repositioned to traditional multifamily that would cater to young people because they'd
yeah,
be smaller furnished units, but we purposely chosen to build individual single occupancy units. That costs more money because you're putting up more demising walls, more kitchens, more bathrooms compared to building, that typical product that existed 10 years ago, which is like 3, 4, 5 bedroom student housing product. So I would say absolutely future proofing is on the top of our mind because we never know what can happen. Did we ever think going back 8 months ago that we would be in a major fight with our best friend who constantly jokes about taking us over?
yeah,
No, we would have never thought that would happen, but anything can happen. So I would say that's a major point. What I would say, what gives us tremendous comfort on the runway for student housing, notwithstanding things could ebb and flow with international students, being cut to a certain extent, is that as you pointed out, Leanne, and you've done your homework, Canada has a demographic problem. We have a declining fertility rate, we have an aging population, we have growing government debt, and we have a larger healthcare burden. What that means is in order to get ourselves out of this equation, we need to bring people into the country, let
yeah,
immigrants come into the country. And the best way to get immigrants in the country are do it through university educated international students who
yeah,
come here, get a degree in Canada, and then want to stay and flourish. So this is obviously, and it's been talked about a lot at nauseum. So I won't, beat it like a dead horse, but um, this is a short-term policy shift to deal with what we have as a very fundamental underlying issue, that we just have a straight up housing supply issue across the country. And I see it every day. We're looking at developing projects and we see the way municipalities are acting. And you cannot blame the staff at the municipalities because they're just doing their job, and they're
yeah,
they're working within the confines of what their role suggests they have to. But is there any reason that in a Toronto or Vancouver, the tightest housing markets, it takes anywhere from 3 to 4 years to get a project approved? And yes, there may be posts on LinkedIn recently that show that the average time to cut development approvals in Toronto has come down. That's a fictitious marketing stat based on our analysis. More can be done there, and there is a new team at the City of Toronto who's doing a lot to make that happen. But then the other side of the equation, which is a hot topic as of late, are also development charges.
Yeah,
And
they're
so,
crazy.
that's stopping projects in its tracks. The government is sacrificing a one-time payment for long-term property tax revenue. And in the lens of student housing, which is something we're advocating for quite greatly, is that student housing, in our view, should be looked at as a form of affordable housing, which means that it would be exempt from development charges, whether it's on campus or off campus. And why do I say that? Well, think about what happens with the development industry.
Yeah.
A developer needs to earn a certain return. If their costs are higher, they're gonna need to charge higher rents, and so at the end of the day, that cost gets passed on to the end user. And what we challenge governments, is to say that, well, we wanna make sure our future leaders of our country are set up in the best way possible.
Yeah.
If we can remove certain government charges, we can bring down the cost of that housing and, they're on a better footing.
Well, and I sometimes feel I mean, I have a lot of friends that aren't in real estate, and I think that's a bit of a misconception that, "Oh, developers are just trying to profit here," but there's no real story talked about, "Okay, well, how much is the government actually charging everyone here?" And it seems like it is a simple solution, but it obviously is not as easy as it should be. Um, I so on the affordable housing side of things, is there a big initiative? Like, is that kind of progressing? And I guess I'm a bit curious because as student housing right now, does it get treated just like a typical development, or do you guys get some grants there, or is it
I wouldn't say grants, but it depends if it's on campus or off campus student
okay?
housing. So in Ontario, and kudos to the current government for passing the bill called Bill 185.
Yeah.
Bill 185 stipulated that any uh, development projects built on university-owned land are exempt from Planning Act. What does that mean? That means you don't have to go through a rezoning or site plan process. You don't have to pay certain fees either. So that's been great. And in fact, um, at our York University project, together with the support of York University Development Corporation, our partner campus suites on that project, and the City of Toronto, we were the first project in Ontario to successfully apply Bill 185.
Oh,
And
no way.
talk about
That's
a
awesome.
way for the city being innovative. This was a new policy that was just passed, and we were iterating with the city. And the city could have said, we can't apply it this way. There's no information around this policy yet. There's a lot of gray area,
Yeah.
and they persevered through it. And as a result, we're ahead of construction, ahead of schedule by 1 year. We
That's
started
amazing
construction
because you don't
early.
hear those stories that often, so that's
No.
great.
However, on
Yeah.
the flip side, similar project, different jurisdiction, that jurisdiction and municipality, Guelph,
Yeah.
said, "No, you aren't exempt under Bill 185." And then, not to, bring too much trauma into the room, we also face a $15 million development charge that we thought we were exempt from and should be exempt from. So,
Jeez.
the problem I would say is that we need to tackle housing on more than just a municipal level. It's a provincial, it's a federal issue. We need to have harmony across policies because we're now also very active
Yeah.
in the lower mainland. And, Metro Vancouver has many different municipalities, but they operate differently and have different requirements than Ontario does. And I think what would help the industry heavily, particularly at a time when we are dealing with the issues we are, is to look at harmonizing policies across the board where possible. We always know there are local issues,
Yeah.
but if we can deal with some of the larger issues and deal with it on a national basis, that should speed up housing and reduce the cost of housing.
Fingers crossed, 'cause, I think everyone will benefit if things can get built quicker. Okay, I wanna ask one more question just kind of on the forum side of things, and then I wanna get into a little bit more of your career. So, I wanna talk about your self-storage fund. I've done a little bit of self-storage. I've had, a couple conversations with MakeSpace over the years. Yeah, they're great. It's cool what you guys are doing. This would be, I guess, my opinion on it. It's still a pretty small niche in Canada, but you guys are kind of differentiating yourselves that You're not necessarily going and competing with the big players. You're purchasing sites in smaller portfolios and secondary markets. What do you see for the future of self storage here? Because I'm having some institutional groups kind of start, they're talking about it a bit more, but I don't know if anyone's fully going in. So, yeah, what do you guys see for self storage here?
Yeah, I would say on, at the very highest level, um, you're certainly seeing more institutional capital in Canada, flow into self-storage. The Quadrille announcement last week
Yeah.
was a significant announcement, to the tunes of hundreds of millions of dollars in the self-storage space. So I'd say more and more capital will flow into it. And when you look at the amount of self-storage square footage per capita in Canada versus the US, we're at a third.
Yeah.
So naturally, there are areas to grow. Um, our strategy with the Makespace team, which is now formally called Forum Makespace after we acquired a 50% interest in the platform last year, you're right, is differentiated from what others are trying to do. So we love the Makespace team. They are proven operators that have been in existence for a number of years. And one thing we certainly know about self storage, like student housing, it's a hands on operating
Oh,
business.
yeah.
So you need the operating capability there to really drive NOI. And so the team is well set up, operating across Canada now from Quebec to BC with an office in the lower mainland as well as in the GTA as well. And so our strategy is very much differentiated in that we are going after secondary and tertiary markets. And why are we doing that? Well, number one, there's a significant consolidation play that's available.
Yeah.
Notwithstanding the fact that we're the sixth largest owner in the country, our assets are at only about $300 million in total. So that just speaks to the fragmentation in
Yeah,
the
for sure.
industry right now. So there's a lot of mom and pops in secondary and tertiary markets who built self storage to create a job for themselves who now are looking to exit. We're the perfect suitor for those opportunities because the large players do not want to go into the secondary and
No,
tertiary
for sure not.
markets. And the other thing we see is actually the barriers to entry are higher, not lower in secondary and tertiary markets. And the reason I say that is in a market like Toronto and Vancouver, developers are always going to enter because there's continued population growth. If you're trying to pencil a project in a secondary or tertiary market, you cannot bank on population growth. What you need to bank on is that you're going to enter into a pricing war with the single operator that's
Yeah.
there
No,
today.
for
That's
sure.
a tough business
Yeah.
model to act on if you're competing for price and for the same customer
Yeah.
pool, because then it's just a race to the bottom. So, what we found in the secondary and tertiary markets that we operate, there's little competition. That actually allows us to cluster more because we can also extract operational savings as well that way. So we think it's a strong business model that's proving out over time. And, shameless plug, if anyone's interested in learning about our open-ended fund focus on self-storage, feel free to reach out.
Yeah. We'll have all the contact info, make sure that everyone's in touch with you. Um, okay, so let's switch gears a little bit here. So you have held some pretty significant roles. You grew Hallmark to what it is now, and they're a pretty cool, differentiated company than kind of some of the other ones out there too. I guess what was it for you that made you realize you were ready for a new challenge? And obviously, the partnership with Richard you've mentioned. Did you look at any other opportunities, or what were you kind of looking for in your next endeavor?
I was pretty cut and dry that I wanted to go build something,
Yeah,
where I would extract a lot of wealth. So, firstly, Hallmark was an amazing journey, and Jeff Hull and I are still very close. So, his family I owe so much to because they really allowed me to get to a prominent position where I was able to, get a role at Forum or have capital look to, partner with me before I made the journey with Forum. And so, that was an amazing opportunity. Um, yeah, I've what I would say is that I've always skewed towards being entrepreneurial. I remember this moment where when I finished my MBA, it was at the start of the financial crisis, and I had always aspirations to go work in London or New York. And I
I can see
took
it.
a
Yeah.
test for a very large insurance company in England,
Yeah.
and I thought I answered questions very thoughtfully, and they said that, you didn't move on to the next round. And I asked for a follow-up call with the HR person. She says, "Your profile is one of an entrepreneur. We're an insurance company.
Yeah.
We don't like entrepreneurs." So I was like, "Okay, I get it." And so my journey has always been joining small or entrepreneurial companies, and that journey, started in a big way with Westmont, and then, translated to Hallmark, and, now here we are at Forum.
Yeah. And so I guess just like the difference between the two. So Hallmark is like it was essentially a family office, and a family that you were working with. Here now you have a diverse mix of different size investors. What has been the biggest, I guess, change or surprise, or just what have you kind of learned between the two? That's been, I guess, the most surprising aspect of it for you.
I wouldn't say anything was surprising. What I would tell you, I'm surprised by the outcome. So what I would say, Hallmark is, well funded, uh, developed to core, uh, owner developer. With certain investments in condo projects and in private loans, but the core business is building a large portfolio that, over time, as we gain traction and momentum, we're able to attract top tier partners like a Sun Life and a First Capital, and some wealthy families as well. The difference here at Forum is we want to grow substantially.
Yeah.
And when you put entrepreneurial, smart people who want to grow, who have a strong desire to grow, that has been the most surprising. Where our minds, the three minds of us, Tate, Richard, and I, together with our key members of our team, we come together and want to create something. We've been able to do it. And so when I look back at some of our harebrained ideas that we had, 3 years ago, where literally when we launched our flagship fund, Reef, our open-ended fund in rental housing, the goal was to be at $1 billion of NAV in 5 years, which we thought was very ambitious. And in year two, didn't look like it was going to be possible
Yeah.
because the market became more
Yeah, for
volatile.
sure.
And here we are after year three, we're north of a billion in NAV. And it's, all those hours our team tirelessly dedicates, leaving no stone unturned. That has been the most surprising thing. What you can achieve when everyone collectively puts their mind together and chases one outcome. It's pretty magical.
Yeah, no, I mean, even just you talking about it, like, it's very exciting. You can feel the fire within you and obviously within the team here too. So you were also a past president at NAOP. You're still on the board over there
Oh
too.
no, I'm no longer a board member.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, when I after a year of past presidency, you fall off the board,
Okay.
but I'm part of a distinguished past presidents, crew, so to speak, and very close with the NAOP team as always.
Yeah, NAOP's amazing. I contribute, I would say, like, majority of the relationships that I have in Toronto through NAOP. I didn't know anyone when I first moved here, and, yeah, no, it's been great. So, what motivated you to get really involved in NAOP, and how has mentorship kind of shaped your career? Have you had any, like, key mentors, or, have you been a mentor to mentees? What's that, been like in your life?
Yeah, for sure. So I would say NAOP, becoming a NAOP chapter member was one of the best decisions I made because before I joined Hallmark, I was unknown in the Toronto real estate industry. Unlike many of the young people who join an Oxford or join a brokerage, they all know each other.
Yeah.
I was in the hotel industry, which is a very specific asset
Yeah, there's
class.
not many people in it here.
Exactly. So my goal when I jumped to Hallmark, my goal was, okay, I need to become known and I need to know people. And NAOP was the most logical place for me to go. And it's funny, I always joke that when I first joined NAOP, I applied to join the Developing Leaders
Oh, yeah,
Committee
yeah.
and I got rejected
Oh,
because
no!
I
Oh,
hadn't been
you
a
wanted.
member for so long. So
Oh,
I said,
no.
forget that. I'm going to the main board. And I
Yeah.
got I was graciously given an opportunity to sit as a volunteer on a committee and then became a board member and then, stayed on for 6 years. And it is forged such great relationships,
Yeah.
some of which have resulted in direct business dealings. And that's what I would say is that there are so many networking events. You could take them one of two ways. You can superficially attend them and, have chit chat with people. And, that's fine. I try and use all of my networking events to build some sort of knowledge, plant some sort of seed, because at one point or another, they always result in some form of business. Good example. We had been in talks with the Alinvest team for a couple of years, but the
Mhm.
defining moment that kickstarted that transaction last year was when one of the principals there and I met at a student housing conference in Austin. And we thought we'd sit together in April last year, and boom, like that creates a justification to attend that conference for me and my team for the rest of
Oh, no,
eternity,
yeah, for
right?
sure. No, that's
And
awesome.
so in terms of mentorship, I would say that, in today's world, my biggest mentor is my partner, Richard. Like, hands down, teaches me things that, like, I would never thought possible, and I'd like to think that I, have taught him a few things, like upping his style game. He'll
I'm
like
sure
this.
you have, yeah.
He'll like that one.
You do have good style. Great
And
hair, good style.
and then, the other piece of it is, Michael Emery was a mentor to me. It's
Did you
so
ever work with him?
I was an intern at Allied
Okay.
for, like, 2 weeks before I got a job at Westmont. There's a story to that I won't get into,
Fair.
but the punchline is, while I was doing my MBA at Schulich, every Schulich MBA, student has to go through, a case study, and you have to cold call a company and say, "Hey, I have a team, I'm at Schulich, and I want to, uh, you know, basically have a team come in, assess their company, and figure out some recommendations."
No way.
And cold email, responded, and built a relationship with him. And there were years
That's amazing.
where
That's so cool.
we didn't,
Yeah.
touch base a lot, but some of the teachings he's given me, and even just watching him, from afar and what he built over the years has been truly inspiring. And what I like to say is, I always participate in the NAIOP mentorships. I try and mentor as many people as I can, because it's so important to give back, and then also help, convey what are key principles, for people to grow their career, because I've seen what works and I've seen what doesn't,
Yeah.
and, I just wanna ensure there's as many people in the real estate industry in Toronto and Canada that are pushing this industry forward.
No, for
Yeah.
sure. I mean, I guess based off that, what does work and what doesn't work?
Hard work. So I'm a big Formula One fan, and people who know me know that I'm not a Max Verstappen fan, but I'm very much a Lewis Hamilton fan.
Okay.
I had
Love it.
have this thing. I follow him around the world when I can.
Amazing.
But there was an event a few weeks ago in Miami where Max actually said something. Cameras were put on him, and he said, "Look, first at the track, 7-time world champion. Second at the track, 4-time world champion. That tells you something." And that's what I would say. My view is that the people who do the best are the hardest workers. If you're not, fortunately, from a really wealthy family and you must, build to
Yeah.
create wealth, the best thing you can do is work hard. And if you work hard together with some luck, that will translate into results. And that's what I try and instill in everyone.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. You have to get in, you have to be consistent. Yeah, you gotta, especially early on in your career. I remember, I think it was when I first started in brokerage, my mentor who I was working with, he's like, all you have is time. All that you can give us right now is time. So make sure that you're in all the time and it works. Um, what would you say is one decision that changed the course of your career that maybe didn't feel significant at the time, but one kind of core moment that's like really changed everything for you?
So I would say early on in my career, when I wasn't able to go to New York or London, I went to Dubai and I worked there for a bit. I absolutely hated it and I didn't have a job, but I decided to come back, and landing at Westmont, um, was the best decision of my career it, up until that point, but certainly it has had a lasting impact on me because of the things that have fallen into place. So, picture 27 years old, I think I was. All of a sudden, because of my boss and my boss's boss quitting, I had the ability to be the asset manager of a $3 billion hotel
You're stepping into
portfolio
that.
that included the Chateau Frontenac to the Chateau to the Fairmont Empress to the Royal York. Like imagine that at
Yeah.
27 years
No,
old.
I
And
can't.
that was such an opportunity. And that was the culture at Westmont, which is actually something we try and instill here, which is throw people in the deep end. You're never going to learn
Yeah,
unless you're just thrown into it.
for
And
sure.
so we've actually created a program here at Forum where we're allowing our highly capable young team members to just run with things. And the only way you're going to
That's
learn
so
is by
empowering. That's really
failing,
cool. Yeah,
right?
that's great. Good for you guys for doing that. Um, yeah, I feel like that is it's the best way to learn, and you learn from your mistakes. So that's cool that you guys are doing that here.
Yeah, and then second was, when I got the opportunity when I got the call when I was ready to move on from Westmont, I got a call, "Hey, Allie, there's this company, Hallmark, who's looking to build a commercial real estate portfolio. You're interested?" I'm like, "Hallmark Cards is trying to build a real estate
Yeah, what?
portfolio?" So I would say, honestly, that was then, every step along the way has, I look back, have been, really instrumental to where I am today, and having an opportunity to work with Jeff Hull, Leona Savoie at the time, and build what is today a really awesome real estate platform that's thoughtful and focused on fine grain real estate and being additive to the community. You know, look at what I've been able to translate here.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, it's very impressive what you guys have done here in like the last 5 years. And we were even just talking about how your travel schedule's been like super crazy. And obviously, with working hard, work-life balance can be a bit of a challenge at time. How do you manage it? And do you have any routines or habits that
I have 0 balance.
yeah, fair.
So it's actually very interesting, that, my wife knows that I have, like, a single mission, and she's an amazing woman and tolerates a lot, and so do my young kids. What I would say, the most challenging thing when I do travel a lot is coming back after a week of being away and seeing, like, my 9 and 5-year-old grow up in a
Yeah.
week. So what I really try and do is when I'm with them now, and I got this advice from someone on our team here who's a granddad now, and he said, just like when you're there, just be present. And so that's one important thing I'm doing is when I am with them, my phone is away from me so I can focus on them because I don't get a lot of time with them
Yeah.
because I am very much focused on building something. But when I am with them, that's how I would say I get some perceived balance. And then, I turn business and networking into social things. So, I'll play tennis with colleagues or lenders.
Yeah.
I will ski with friends who are in the industry, and so that becomes part of your life, and it works.
Yeah. Awesome. Um, Okay, so we're pretty much wrapping up here. I do this thing at the end. It's a little rapid fire.
Cool.
So I'll run through this quick and then, yeah. Okay, are you a morning person or a night owl?
Morning.
Morning. What time do you wake up at?
I always try to wake up between 5:45 and 6 a.m.
And do you have like a strict morning regime?
No, it's like basically wake up, groggy, look at my phone, like, okay, process, and then I'm usually out the door by about 7:15, first in the office generally. The damn construction guys, there's new construction guys on our team who like are very early birds and beat me sometimes, but my team knows that, they'll generally see me in the office as
Yeah.
one of the
And are you
first.
last to leave?
Not last to leave because I'm always traveling or doing like some sort of social event in the evenings, but yeah, like we're, all working late when we have to
Yeah, for
drive an
sure.
initiative, yeah,
What would you say your favorite city is for real estate and then your favorite city just like in
in
general?
general. Okay, so favorite city for real estate, I would have to say objectively without knowing much about it, but having visited there a ton is London.
Oh
The
yeah, London's so
architecture
cool.
in London is so unique and so different, and architectural excellence is such a real thing. So I would say, in terms of real estate, that is the city for me. In terms of city to visit, I would have said London up until uh, when I went to Paris for the first time in July last year, and I subsequently went to Paris again last year, and
Oh,
I'm
you're
trying to
Paris
find a
fan.
way to get to Paris this year because what an amazing, city at human scale,
Yeah.
which I really appreciate.
Cool. Do you prefer the beach or mountains?
Mountains,
Mountains. You said
mountains.
you're a skier.
Yeah.
Nice. What would be your favorite book or podcast?
Oof. Favorite podcast would actually be a podcast called Capital Allocators.
I haven't heard
So
of that one.
it's an
Okay.
interesting podcast. It's non-real estate, but what it is, a podcast, I guess, interviewer or creator who interviews uh, like portfolio managers or heads of endowments, of private equity firms, of insurance companies, basically anyone that is allocating capital or a manager. And for me, that's very important because listen, I understand real estate. I've been doing it since I was pretty young in various different shapes or forms. Where I'd love to build my knowledge base around is how allocators think. Because if you understand, and that's not a one word answer, but I
No,
have
no,
to
no.
say it that
Honestly,
uh,
half I love that when these elaborate a little bit more too,
yeah,
so that's
like,
great.
Forum, we're an alternative asset manager. We've taken the time over the past 3 years to build a wholesaling team internally. We have a
Oh,
team of
interesting.
8 people here raising capital for us through various channels. And so if I can think like an allocator, I can help our team raise more
Yeah,
capital.
get to the next level that way.
Yeah.
Very cool. I'll have to check it out. I haven't heard of that one. How do you celebrate a big win?
It's usually by buying myself something that is, to mark the momentous occasion. It can be anything. It could be a watch. It could be a pair of shoes. Unfortunately, I own a lot of shoes.
Yeah,
Fortunately
shoe
or
guy.
fortunately, shoe guy. But I'll buy something because I think it's so important to memorialize your big successes and celebrate them with your team.
For
You know,
sure. What's the next thing you're buying?
I have to think about that.
Fair. What's something on your bucket list?
Something on my bucket list to attend every F1 race in an entire calendar. So that'll have to wait till I'm, less busy,
Yeah.
but that's definitely on the bucket list.
Again, last one. How do you define success?
Um, Building something that will last, beyond your lifetime and having fun while you're doing it.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, I think that's wrapped up unless you have any final words you want to say, but I really appreciate your time today, Allie. This was great.
Thank you, Leanne. I really
Awesome.
appreciate being on this podcast with you.